What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, today's episode, we're going to resume work on the 2022 Toyota Tacoma Access Cab 4x4 Sport. And in today's episode, I'm going to show you guys how to install some rock sliders made by 4WP parts. So without further ado, let's go ahead, get these rock sliders installed on the 2022 Toyota Tacoma. All right, before we go ahead and position the passenger side frame slider in position, let me show you what's going on the underside of the truck. Okay, so first things first, you got this bracket that's slid in position on this cross member. As you can see, you got this little tab that hangs out. Basically, this is a maneuverability tag, so it doesn't drop down into the cross member and get lost. So you can actually maneuver this thing that way. And then over here on this body wiring harness, had to undo 2 10mm bolts for the cover and 2 12mm bolts. So this is now free right here. There's gonna be another step involved for that. And then moving on the front side of the frame right here, there was a little plastic cover. I actually popped that thing out. Okay, looking at the center cross member area, there's a 14mm bolt. You gotta remove that. And then moving north, you got this bracket right here with a tab. So you got this special bracket with a welded in nut right there. So it's gonna be ready to receive the frame slider with a new bolt in position. Okay, so I believe we got all the preparation done on the passenger side frame. This is much less involved than the driver's side, so we're gonna go ahead and get the frame slider onto the floor jack and get this thing in position and mount the first nut and bolt. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay, got the frame slider in position and we got a lot of hardware attached. So let me show what's going on. So working on the inside of the frame right here, you got this bracket, flat bracket with an extended stud. And then over here, you got the washer and nut that holds in place. That's on the very back of it. And then moving along, we got another flat bracket with a stud that extends out. Here's another nut and washer, attaches that right there. And then moving on to the central cross member, you got this nut and step washer right there. And then on the very bottom side of the frame, you got this bolt and step washer as well. So that attaches the threads on the factory cross member bolt right there. Okay, so there's one more flat bracket right here as we get closer to the front of the truck. And that's held in place also by a nut and washer. So everything is actually snug, but somewhat loose. And that enables this slider to actually have some movement as we move up to the very front of the truck and get the last brackets put in position. So we're making good leeway. So I believe we've got 2 or 3 more bolts to go. We'll find out. Okay, we're on the final bracket, which is the worst one. So as you can see, this is a very long bracket and you got some welded nuts right there on the left and right hand side. So let me show you exactly how this thing goes in. This is the worst part of the installation in my opinion. Okay, so underneath the front of the truck, towards the front end side of the frame, so you got this opening right here, and let me show you exactly how that bracket works. Okay, so basically you want to take this long piece right here, and you need to shove it into the frame, and then you go toward the outside of the slider. You need to make sure that the holes are lined up right here and right there. It's tougher than it looks, but basically you have to just basically reach in there and feel your way in for when the bolts connect to the bracket. So I'm gonna go ahead and take care of this. All right, and here's a tool breakdown of what I used to install the 4WP sliders on Tacoma. 1/2-inch breaker bar, 1/2-inch ratchet, short 1/2-inch ratchet, 3/8 ratchet, 1/2-inch extensions, 10mm socket, 3/8 extension, 1/2-inch sockets, 12mm, 14mm, 16mm, 17mm, 19mm, and 21mm. Wrenches, 8mm, 12mm, 13mm, 17mm, 19mm. Razor blade, flathead screwdrivers, angled needle nose pliers, cutters, pry tools, plastic pry tools, pry bar, and last but not least, a flashlight. And this is a tool breakdown of what I used to install the frame sliders on the 2022 Toyota Tacoma. Okay, passenger frame sliders officially installed. Let's go underneath and take a closer look. Okay, starting with the rearmost of the truck. Right here on the back of the slider, you got the metal plate right here, which actually has a threaded stud, and then you got a nut and washer right there. And then moving a little closer, same situation, metal plate, threaded stud, and then you got the nut and the washer itself. As we make our way over to the cross member, you've got a bolt right here, and then you got a recessed washer. And same thing right here, this actually replaces the factory bolt. And then you got a recessed raised washer right there. And then it looks like there's some type of bracket right there. This might be for rock lights. So I don't plan on installing those anytime soon, but it's nice that it's there. And then right here, there's another plate with a threaded stud, and you got a nut and washer in place. And moving on down the line, right here, this basically is wiring harness connectors, and that's for the body harness. So if the body has to come off the frame, basically these harness connectors have to come off, and there's a special bracket that actually pushes away from the factory frame rails. And there's actually an included bracket which actually pushes the mount away from the factory frame rails. And then I had to remove the factory tie strap, which had a clip on it, and then tie strapped it in position because the wire's a little tight. And then moving towards the front of the truck, you got a bolt in the washer and another bolt in the washer right there. Now, this is the long piece that goes in the inside of the frame. This was a little tricky, so just make sure that the actually bolts go right through the area on that flat plate. I actually had to take my thread and tap die set and then re-tap the threads because it was damaging the bolts. So just go ahead and make sure that those things go in smoothly. And then last but not least, you got this bolt right here on the bottom with a recessed washer. So everything has been tightened up. Everything is looking good. This thing is very sturdy. I stood on it. The thing is not moving whatsoever, and this thing is very heavy. It's about 100 pounds each. Now they do give you the option if you want to go ahead and put an extra bolt nut right there, and you got to drill through the frame. So I chose not to go that route. I don't think that's necessary. I'm not going to be bouncing off rocks and stuff. So I think for my application, I should be okay, but it's nice that the manufacturer included the option. Okay, things are all buttoned up, and I'm happy of how things are looking underneath here. All right, one major installation note on the driver's side frame slider is right here, you get the fuel pump relay, and it comes with a custom bracket that actually pushes away from the frame rail, and then you got this black cover right here. Now, keep in mind, you got these wiring harnesses right here, and these wiring harnesses were actually sitting right on top of that corner of that sheet metal, and over time, that corner probably wore through this wiring harness right here. So I went ahead and put tie straps and basically tied back the wiring harness from sitting on top of this corner sheet metal right there. So just a little FY on installation for the wiring harness on the driver's side. All right, passenger frame slider officially installed. Let's go ahead, take a closer look at these things. Really impressed how these things turned out. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at the driver's side. Okay, we got a lot more sunlight on this side, so I'll give you some better illustrations here. Okay, now regarding the shape, it's hard to describe, but it's basically like a square type of tube. Now, the majority of frame or rock sliders out there are basically round tubes, and this is not it. So I think this is like the closest look to like an OEM type of frame or rock slider available for the Tacoma. All right, now regarding the availability of these frame sliders in particular, these are made by 4WP parts, and sadly, these were discontinued. So I believe I bought these right around January. Someone posted a deal on Tacoma Nation on Facebook, and these frame sliders were $300 for a pair. I mean, that's just a phenomenal deal, given rock sliders are about $1,000 plus, and I had to pay $200 freight. So I'm in these frame sliders for 500 bucks, and I couldn't be happier. I mean, these things look phenomenal. They're very well built. They got a lot of weight to them. So essentially, these frame sliders by 4WP parts are not all about looks. These things probably perform phenomenally well on the trails, being as heavy duty as they are. Now, one interesting feature about these 4WP sliders, you got this little cutout right here with a stencil. And right behind it, you got the color, which is white right now. And if you went ahead and undid these Allen screws right here on the side and one right here on the top, I believe you can take that insert out, probably change the color, but we'll keep it as is right now. Okay, now regarding the sizing of these frame sliders were indicated as double cab short bed. Now, upon doing research, access cab long bed has the same frame, so I went ahead, took a risk, placed the order, and sure enough, these things fit on this truck just like a glove. Really, really happy of how these rock sliders turned out for the 3rd generation Toyota Tacoma. I would definitely buy these things again. So Byron, thank you again for all the help that you gave me in installing these things. Couldn't have done it without your help. Man, I just can't get over how good these frame sliders look on this 3rd gen Tacoma. What do you guys think? You like these frame sliders? Alrighty guys, the frame sliders are now installed on the 3rd generation Toyota Tacoma, and let me tell you, these things are quite heavy. I believe they weigh 95 pounds, and they weigh every little bit of that. So I want to go ahead and give special thanks to my friend Byron for helping me with this installation. This is definitely a 2-man operation in my opinion. Now, what exactly are frame sliders? Basically what they're designed to do is protect the body when you're going on trails and off-road. They're a lot more robust than side steps, so I'm glad I went the route of frame sliders versus typical side steps. Anyways, we got a lot more content coming for the 3rd generation Toyota Tacoma, and I hope you guys can stay tuned. And if you found this video helpful or entertaining, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic day.